Snetterton for the 9th Wilshire 24-hour race. There are not many 24-hour races in the world. There's Daytona, Le Mans and Spa, but this one is special because it's for Group N, which is as near as you and I are going to see production cars here at the Snetterton circuit. My name's Neville Hay. I've been joined by Robin Bradford up here in the box to look at the cars, and is this going to be another Ford victory?
Well, Neville, I think the clever money is suggesting the Sierra Cosworth. It's got the speed, 158 miles an hour, approaching the S's here at Snetterton, but it may not have the reliability to last the 24 hours. So some people are suggesting perhaps the BMW M3 out of the second capacity class, Class B, might be the car to maintain the pace for the 24 hours.
We've just seen Jerry Marnie sitting in his car. Before that, Tony Lanfranchi. We're looking at Vaughan Richmond now in one of the smaller capacity cars, the Volkswagen Golf. And this is, of course, always a little bit of a race of attrition, because if you're going to run a car in this, a production car, you're bound to have problems. Phil Bullman makes a comeback every year for this now.
Yes, and he was one of the winners last year, and he's in Tommy Field's car, one of the Cosworth Sierras. I think quite a strong team there.
Well, we can also see there's a very strong BMW team this time, with the M3s, Finer, the unleaded fuel people.
Yes, a big BMW presence here. Fina with their two cars. Robin Brundle, of course, local here at Snetterton, comes from just down the road in Norfolk. Younger brother of former Grand Prix driver Martin. Robin leading that team. That's the sort of BMW M3 we might be looking at, certainly for a top 2 or 3 place.
Yes, I think the BMWs are certainly in with a big chance here. The Fords do find it with their turbocharged engines are a little bit of a job to maintain pace for 24 hours.
Yes, I think as much as anything else, Neville, with the Ford Sierra Cosworth, it's the complex nature of the electronic chips and so on which controls the engine. That's the sort of thing that's difficult for the teams to cope with.
We're in car now.
Yes, we're with Sean Brown in one of the Cosworth Sierras. Sean starting from the 5th row of the grid, rather further back than we might have expected to see him. He's teaming up in his Brown and Geeson Sierra with Rod Burley and Mike O'Brien, both of them very experienced saloon car drivers, and we can expect that his 5th row grid position isn't going to be where the car's going to run during the race.
Now this is a rolling start. The cars are going round behind the pace car, and we can see, as Robin has told us, inside Sean Brown's car, the driver's eye view of the Snetterton circuit. They come up to this right-hander here, which is what, during race pace?
During race pace, we're coming up here perhaps 90 miles an hour, braking. We've been going past the pit lane at perhaps about 120. We're braking into 90 as we go through Richards and Sear, the first 2 right-hand corners here. Snetterton, of course, not a particularly long circuit, and therefore very demanding in a 24-hour race because the brakes come in for such immense punishment.
Yeah, because we're coming into Sear Corner now, which is just a little bit tighter, in fact, than the first corner on the circuit that we've seen. But now it's onto this long straight, and down here the Cosworths are really going very quickly. Yes,
indeed. I, in fact, had a practice lap or 2 earlier on with Tony Lanfranchi as a passenger in his Cosworth Sierra, and as we were reaching the braking point for the S's, we stormed down this Revit straight here past the grandstand on the right, and as we were reaching the braking point for the S's, we were doing 158 miles an hour. In the passenger seat, Neville, that seems very quick.
Very quick indeed. There's the pace car. Here are the S's, the first part of the S, where everybody has to brake, and brake very hard indeed.
Yes, it's a very tough corner, particularly for the Cosworths, because they're going that bit quicker, of course, than anything else in the field. Brakes, I think, Neville, are going to play a very important part over the next 24 hours.
Yeah, they will change, in fact, of course, pads, but in some cases they'll have to change brake discs as well, and that is quite a long job. And the pit work, of course, in a race like that is very much a feature of it, because if you don't get the pit work right, the longer the car's in the pit, the more or less chance you have of getting really anywhere in this sort of race.
That's right, Neville. The pit work and the team management particularly is a very important part. Just to mention one of the teams, as we talk of team management, Lionel Abbott and Graham Scarborough, starting from the outside of the front row. Lionel, a previous winner of this event when he was with Mike Smith, his team managers his brother Ed Abbott, and Ed personifies the good, strong team manager who arranges everything for this event.
Yes, he used to be a test driver for Jaguar, actually. A very useful driver himself, Ed. So down we go then, coming up to probably, I think, the most difficult part of this circuit, this left-hander here, just before the pits.
Yes, the left-hander at Russell, where drivers really have to keep themselves absolutely on their toes, and we're coming up to the start. The pace car is peeled off into the pit lane, and the 1988 Wilshire 24 hours is go. And already, as we see from our camera car, Sean Brown moving himself up through the field, picks up a couple of places, even by the time they get to the first corner.
It's amazing actually in a race like this, the driver's often treated as almost a Grand Prix for the first hour or so, and I often wonder why people do this, but yet it happens. All the 24-hour races have been the same this year, and the Cosworths are going to try and break each other up.
Quite remarkable, as you say, Neville, but making the pace is the Pinckney and Gravitt car, which started from pole position. Rob Gravitt, the previous winner of this event, driving this time with the Cosworth Sierra, but they make the running as they come through under the bridge, through the bomb hole, and through Coram Curve for the first time of, we're hoping, of course, we may beat the 1,000 lap record this year in the Wilshire 24 hours.
Well, that's one that's been going for a long time to be beaten, and of course, a lot of these teams will have decided on a pre-arranged lap time. You'll decide what the lap time is that you want to do in the race, and it'll be one which each driver can keep comfortably within the capabilities of the car, yet others will say, OK, go out, let's see what the pace is, and let's go for it. And I don't know which of the two types of philosophy is going to come off best today.
Well, talking to competitors before the race, Neville, the standard lap time philosophy is a strong one with the Jerry Marnie, Mark Hale's team, and already just glancing as we are doing through the field, we see that they're running in a relatively low position, Jerry Marnie at the wheel at the start of the race, for a man with such experience.
And I've got my eyes open for the first non-Ford Sierra. There, in fact, was one of the finer BMWs. I think it was a Robin Brundle car.
Yes, running at the head of the Class B field in the early part of the race. Interestingly, of course, the quickest Class B car in practice was not one of the BMWs, it was the Ford Escort, with a very quick practice time set by reigning Uniroyal champion Carl Jones.
Yeah, Carl Jones, very much the man to watch as far as the smaller Ford is concerned, but I think they'll have a job to cope with the BMW here. In car again, Sean Brown's car, and you can see just touching the curb, and that's another trick here that the drivers will try very, very carefully to avoid. They will not want to put wheels on curbs. It wears suspension in a 24-hour race, not a good thing to do.
Also, of course, Neville, it wears tyres. And you must remember, particularly at Snetterton, we've already talked of the rather tight confines of the circuit. The front right tyre at Snetterton comes under a lot of pressure, as for that matter does the front left. And tyres, of course, play an important part too.
Well, an important part being played in this race by the leading car. We saw Sean Brown there for a moment or two, but it's not Sean Brown leading.
No, at the head of the field, Neville, we've got just coming through Russell here is the Mobile 1 Cosworth Sierra of Lionel Abbott and Graham Scarborough, two drivers who haven't done a long-distance race together before, but already just spending a little time in the pit, I've begun to appreciate how closely they're working together.
Yes, Skid Scarborough has done this race many times. He's the next winner of it, and he's the ideal driver, in fact, for this type of race, because he has the pace, but also he can take care of a car too. An aerial shot now of this packed Snetterton circuit, and the first pit caller.
And the first pit caller we see, strangely enough, is the event sponsor himself, Roger Williams, in his Wilshire-backed Cosworth Sierra. He's coming down into pit lane, the normal position there for the Wilshire pit. Roger then into the pits. No, but look, we've got another pit caller here, and this is a far more significant one because we're now seeing Jerry Marnie in the Firestone car. Now that's a problem for them, obviously, because this cannot be a scheduled stop.
Jerry Marnie, who sells boats for a living, and when he's not selling boats, he's driving both in this race, but also in the British Touring Car Championship this year, with some quite effective places to his credit too.
Yes, of course, he won the opening round, which was a bit of a surprise to everyone, including having spoken to him about it, him.
Yeah, well, he's out of the pits there, and it looks all right, but only time alone will tell.
That's right, but time is certainly telling there with the leading car. A very steady run indeed for the Mobile Cosworth Sierra. Interesting there, just noticing the motor build Cosworth Sierra, Neville. A car run by Graham Davis, who's a former MG racer, moved into this category for the first time this year and really beginning to shake up some of the old stages.
Yep, there's the BMW again. Number 26. Leading his class, Robin Brundle, sharing it with Formula Ford star Gareth Van Cowan, and David Sears returning for a race at Snetterton in his own home circuit.
Yes, that's right. A strong team locally, in media terms, certainly, having Brundle and Sears in the same car. David will only be driving in the early parts of the race. We'll doubtless see him later on into the night doing some long stints because he must go off to Mallory Park tomorrow, where he's running his Formula Ford team.
Well, we've just seen a bevy of Volkswagens. The GTI Golfs, always long-time competitors here, basically maintain a pretty reliable run, and we've got a fair selection of them here. The Andy Middlehurst car, Alan Minshaw, John Brindley, John Llewellyn, that I'm going to think would be a front runner, I would have thought.
Yes, indeed, Neville, but just about in there, back into the pits once again, we see Jerry Marnie with the Firestone Firehawk Cosworth Sierra. Obviously, quite a lot of problems for this team, and there's Roger Dowson, the man who prepares the cars and runs them, himself a former competitor as a rallycross driver, and judging by the look of it, they're beginning to have a few problems with the underbonnet temperature.
He doesn't look good. Number 3 is in, however, and that's the leading car, and that is a scheduled stop.
Yes, I think so, as we're now seeing the beginning of the scheduled stops, Neville. There comes the leading Class B car as well, which is one of the FINA BMWs, team manager Rob Vickery getting everything together there, as into the car gets David Sears, Robin Brundle having got out.
Well, we're well into the first period, if you like, the first one before pit stops here of the Wilshire 24-hour race, the 9th Wilshire 24-hour race, 1988 race, and let's just have a look at the positions with these pit stops now taking their toll on what was the race order. What have we got now, Robin, as a situation?
Well, Neville, looking at the position after 3 hours here, we have Lionel Abbott and Graham Scarborough in the lead. They've completed 130 laps in those 3 hours, with 2 other cars still on the same lap. Secondly, Graham Davis, Paul Tredecki, Ray Davis, Cosworth Sierra. Third, Sean Brown, Rod Burley, Cosworth Sierra. Fourth, Tommy Field, Hathaway in their Cosworth Sierra. So we've got 4 of the Fords at the head of the field. But fifth, the first of the Class B cars, that's the Brundle, Van Cowen, Sears BMW M3. Its teammate, McHale, Sands and Dowsett in 6th place and 2nd in the class. Just running further down, we find the leading Class C car is Nick Bourne and Rob Kirby in their Golf GTI, just a lap ahead of the 2nd Class C car, Des Winks, Ray and Elliott in the Honda Prelude. And the leading Class D car, although well down the field, of course, is the Povey Jeffrey Suzuki Swift GTI.
Well, we've just seen Graham Davis bring his car in. We also saw a few moments ago from inside the Volkswagen, which is also a camera car, that car come in as well.
Yes, the Volkswagen now leaving the pits with Phil White having changed over. There he is, waving his... yes, indeed, you're just having a glass of water, Phil. We can see there Mel Johnson, one of the team managers in this event. You can identify the team managers by the blue tabards with the race number on them. Back out onto the track, we spot once again the leading car, number 3, the Mobile 1 Cosworth Sierra of Lionel Abbott and Skid Scarborough. And now headlights ablaze, something, of course, Neville, in a shorter race than this we would only see when the leading car is lapping the slower runners. But, of course, in the 24 hours, we get an awful lot of headlights.
Tremendous strain on the electrics of the car and tremendous strain here on somebody's Cosworth, but all doesn't look well.
Yes, this is the picnic car. It's in the pits, and oh, look what the problem we've got here. Fuel spilling all over the circuit. One man on the left filling the left filler, but on the right, big problems here. The fuel spilling out all over the side of the car and onto the tarmac of the pit lane. This is the car that was on pole position, the Pickney Gravit car, and boy, have they got problems.
And quite obviously, this is going to be a much longer than scheduled stop as a result of this mistake. I'm not quite sure what went wrong there, Robin.
Very difficult to tell looking at it, Neville. They've got all the modern gear, the very quick, filling gear, but obviously something's just not quite there. You can see one of the team members there just having a look to see what isn't quite connecting, because obviously when you thrust that the big hose into the car, something should connect to prevent that spillage.
There's a problem here for one of the BMWs.
This is the Hexagon car being pushed into the pits now, number 11, which is the Kevin Jones, Bill Nathan, Nick Atkins, Nick Oatway car. Bill Nathan, of course, the service manager of Hexagon of Highgate, the BMW dealer, so this isn't quite the image he'd want to be projecting.
Yeah, well, if he can't get it right, who can? The M3 BMW in this form, of course, is the homologated car, not with the latest update with the 6-speed box, but it's basically the BMW Formula 2 engine brought out to 2.3 litres. Leading forward, going well, still the Lionel Abbott car. Puff of smoke from it, it's been running like clockwork.
Indeed it has, going like a train, and that's the sort of reliability, frankly, those of us who were asked to put a bit of money on this event before it started, that was the sort of thing we were looking for. The clockwork, steady pit work, just good, solid driving. There, incidentally, Neville, we just see it is the Sean Brown car we've got as a camera car, and just behind it there, we caught a glimpse of the Opel Monza. A bit of an old dog almost nowadays in this category, a very heavy car, nowhere near the pace of the Cosworths. It used to be a race-winning car, of course, in the hands of the likes of Jerry Marshall and Tony Lanfranchi.
Yes, they tried so hard to win this race with one of those cars a year or two back. All the GM personnel, the whole lot there, and it all ended up in disaster with some of the head gasket going and goodness knows what else, but it was good while it lasted.
Indeed, it's interesting how the pace of production saloon car racing means that... And we've got an accident off here, Neville. Somebody off onto the outside of the circuit there. It's the... Let's just have a look. It's the Ray Davis, the motor build Cosworth Sierra, number 2 there. That's Ray Davis, Graham Davis and Paul Tredecchi's car, with Graham at the wheel by the looks of it, looking behind him to rejoin the circuit. So we've got off-track incidents as well.
Yes, I don't think he came to any great harm there, but he might very well have done the task, not a great deal of good.
But Neville, you know, some of the runoff areas here at Snetterton are pretty much ploughed fields, and all you've got to do is get something to thump the underneath of the car, and you've got a problem.
Yeah, not like a rally car. You don't have a sump shield here or anything like that, and these cars, in fact, the ride height, usually a little bit lower than standard, because you will, if you can, let the springs flatten out a little bit.
That's right, we just caught a glimpse there of one of the Class D cars, the Suzuki Swift.
And we're coming up, perhaps now, to the most interesting part of any 24-hour race, the hours just before dark.
That's right, Neville, we started the race this year a little bit late, 17 minutes past 4 rather than the 4 o'clock, as we were rebuilding some of the pit lane arm coat, but we're now moving into the evening, as you say, and let's just have a look perhaps at the positions after 6 hours, as we're coming up to that sort of time, as it's getting darker and darker now, and we find that Lionel Abbott and Graham Scarborough still are managing to hold on to that lead in their Cosworth Sierra. Tommy Field and Hathaway now up to second in their Sierra, Brown and Burley down to third with theirs. Leading Class B car now is the Brundle, Cow and Sears BMW M3 in 4th place, and the leading Class C car, and this, Neville, is a terrific performance, in 6th place overall, the Golf GTI of Bourne and Kirby.
It's all the fun of the fair at Snetterton, because the side shows and the fairground and all the things that go to making up a 24-hour race add to the enjoyment of a day out like this. 24-hour racing isn't like going to any other sort of motor race. You go really to stay the 24 hours, to go to the racing, to go away, perhaps have a meal, come back again, or to enjoy the fairground and the other things that go on. And Snetterton at night makes a very interesting sight viewed from afar.
Indeed it does, Neville. We've already bumped into one or two people who've arrived just as the night time was coming on, and they say they can pick out the racing headlights from many miles away down on the A11. An exciting sight indeed. Of course, very deceptive, because once the cars have their headlights on, they appear to be going faster, but of course they're actually running perhaps 2, perhaps 3 seconds slower during the night time.
And while all this goes on and night falls, there's still, of course, the pit work that goes on all night long, and by now, some of the crews are beginning to feel some of the stress and some of the strain.
Absolutely right. I mean, it's a difficult time, because while you might want to snatch a few moments rest, you're not going to be able to, just in case your car comes in.
The hours of the night and the darkness in the 9th Snetterton 24-hour race, the Wilshire event, living up to its reputation, but so far, reliability's been pretty good.
Yes, indeed it has, Neville. We haven't seen very many retirements at all.
Well, down in the pits, there's Phil White, and he's driving a Volkswagen, and he's talking to Cindy about how the race is going for him.
You seem to be having your car in pieces, Phil. What seems to be the trouble?
We took the rear crank seal out earlier on because it was leaking and getting oil on the clutch. We tried to mend it because no one had one, and tried a few laps, no good. So we've taken the gearbox out of a road car, which is in the paddock. We've had to set the lights up for that. We've had 2 teams, one take the gearbox out of that and take the housing and the oil seal off there. The lads now are working very hard and they're putting it back together, and we're going to finish. There's no doubt about that.
The true Wilshire spirit, eh?
That's right, yeah.
How are you going to get home?
I don't know, I'll have to walk, I suppose.
The interesting thing, of course, about that is it often so happens, because People work, in fact, on a car, take the pieces off a road car, and then they've got to go and do it all again when the race is over. We've got a pace car situation, Robin.
Yes, we have indeed, Neville. The reliability of which we were talking only a little while ago has... it's not so much unreliability that's being the problem. We've had one or two cars off the circuit in the recent time, hence the fact that the pace car is out there just to control the race while the marshals are clearing away the debris.
And the switched-on teams, of course, take this opportunity always to make their pit stops. It's one where you don't lose quite so much time. In race pace, you're always going to lose more time. And even if you find yourself timing your pit stop, even with the pace car out, you can, in fact, first and foremost, lose perhaps only 1 or 2 laps as opposed to use 3, and that really does count. You have to get that right.
Leader's car in the pits, and there's Graham Scarborough cleaning the screen so that his teammate Lionel Abbott can see where he's going in the dark as he leaves the pits. There the car goes.
And of course that pit stop is important. And as I said, the one thing to do, of course, is when you come out of the pit, you try to time it so that you come out after the pace car has gone by, and if you can, get on the back of the queue, because everybody concertinas up behind the pace car and you lose a bit less time that way. This is Jerry Marley. Now we're going to talk to Mark Hales about his race.
It started too well for us. We had an alternator problem which boiled the battery and put too many volts through the brain which controls the engine's injection, and Jerry had to come in twice to have both of those changed and the alternator, and that dropped us something like 16 laps behind. It's going okay now, but it's understeering a bit more than I'd like, but there's a long way to go yet.
A long way to go indeed, and here we see somebody bringing in the rigours of the night, the accident repair units, and the pits really at full charge now. And with 12 hours completed now, half distance, in the 1988 Wilshire 24-hour race, these are the positions.
First is Lionel Abbott and Graham Scarborough with their Sierra Cosworth. Second, Pinkney and Gravett, Sierra Cosworth. Third, Field and Hathaway. Fourth, Brown and Burley. 2 more Sierra Cosworths. But the excitement comes in 5th place, where the leading Class C car, the Volkswagen Golf GTI of Jones and Taft, is just ahead of its class competition Bourne and Kirby. The first of the Class B cars is now the Oates, Richmond and DaCosta Ford Escort RS Turbo, because the Fina BMW M3s have hit a lot of trouble during the early hours of the morning. Class D, still led by a Suzuki Swift GTI, of course, and it's the Povey Jeffrey Clark car.
It's an odd thing about motor racing and about 24-hour races that the troubles very often come with the night. And it does seem to be that the extra stress of using the electrics plays its part in this.
Yes, it does. Now that so many parts of car engines, and here we see just an example of the problems, they can't even start that Fina BMW for it to leave the pits. Yes, so much of the car engine now is controlled by the electrics. The more strain you put on it, the more problems you get.
Well, I'm not quite sure what that is, but my goodness me, it looks attractive, as we've still got a lot of the night and a lot of the darkness to get through here at Snetterton in this year's race, and the patterns of the lights, of course, look pretty to us, but they are, in fact, pretty adequate. The amount of light that you're getting down onto the circuit enables racing speed to be maintained without too many difficulties. There are some drivers who are very good at night, Lanfranchi being one of them, particularly good at night, and I can think of 1 or 2 others who much prefer to drive during the hours of daylight.
Yes, that's right, and that's of course one of the advantages of having 4 or 5 drivers in a team at the Wilshire 24 hours. You can use people to their best advantage and to their best abilities.
Yes, a few years ago, in fact, Sterling Moss used to do this race, and he always used to do the hours just before dark and the hours of dawn, because even at 50 years of age then as he was, his eyesight was still that much better in that sort of light than a lot of other people's, and he was stupendously quick.
Back into the pits once again, although this looks as though it's probably one of the routine stops, is that beleaguered Firestone Cosworth Sierra with Jerry Marley about to take over from Mark Hales. A lot of rather unsavoury steam emerging from under the bonnet, however.
Yes, I don't like the look of that at all, and I would not be surprised to see that that car is out with the bête noire of most cars of this type, because they tend to blow head gaskets, they tend to have exhaust valves go, or the turbo itself. But we're coming up now towards dawn here, and it's definitely getting better.
Look at the brakes on the back of that Cosworth Sierra there, the way they glow in the dark. Being overtaken by an Escort, of course, but I think probably a bit of lapping going on there as they come under the bridge. There's the leading car as dawn breaks over Snetterton. Still the Lionel Abbott, Graham Scarborough, Cosworth Sierra going like a train.
Yes, the preparation, of course, that goes into a race like this is quite amazing. They will start off with a complete rebuild on the car, although it's going to be competing in the Uniworld Series during the course of the year, and literally go through everything, starting off with, of course, engine, gearbox, axle, all the major components of that sort. And they will probably run the race with the same engine that they use in practice, unless they have some sort of disaster. Now into the race like this sort of thing pays off. The attention to detail pays off in the examination of the electrical circuits and things like this, and where possible, of course, doubling up on things, which they can and do.
Yes, Neville, you're absolutely right. The months of preparation that goes into an event like this. Interestingly, we had one empty slot on the grid this year, which only arose 10 days before the race, and we couldn't fill it because we couldn't find a team anywhere that could get themselves together in such a short space of time.
Quite remarkable. And you also see a lot of spectators, in fact, they're not sleeping late because it's still very early hours, and this is what it's like in car: hot, sweaty, sticky. The car, you will find dampers are a little bit off, brakes are not quite as even as they were, things like this, and BMWs, well, they do have lasting qualities.
Yes, Neville, this is one of the M3s we're inside now. Just as you can see, just see how much quicker down the Revit straight that Cosworth Sierra that just rocketed past is. Looks to me at the moment as though we're taking it rather easy in our BMW, wouldn't you say?
Yes, not too quickly. My guess is that we haven't got too many brakes.
No, so we don't want to arrive at any corners going too quickly. Of course, another aspect of the Wilshire 24 Hours, which we're seeing a little bit of evidence of here, is quite a remarkable speed differential between the cars in the bottom class, of which the Suzuki just ahead of us here, a 1300cc car, and cars like the M3s and the Cosworth Sierras.
It's always the difficult part about races like this. If you're taking, 30-odd cars as we have here, and multiply that by not 1, 2, 3 or 4 different drivers perhaps per car, to find that number of drivers who are capable of coping with the traffic is very, very difficult. It's always been the favourite hobby horse of a number of Grand Prix drivers competing Le Mans and things like that. Look at that, 3 wheels on my wagon.
Yes, indeed, 3 wheels on your wagon, and this is one of the Suzuki Swifts. This is car number 82. This is the Povey Geoffrey Clark car, and believe it or not, Neville, he's just completed an entire lap of the circuit on those 3 wheels because the wheel fell off directly opposite pit lane.
Well, 3 wheels on my wagon or not, we're coming up now to 8 o'clock in the morning, and things are beginning to look very interesting in this Wilshire race, because still out in the lead is that Lionel Abbott Scarborough car that was out in the lead right from the start, and that is a remarkable run.
Yes, indeed it is. It's going like a train, as we've said once or twice before already. It lost the lead for a brief period of time to Tommy Field, but back in the lead it is, with 16 hours completed. Abbott and Scarborough, 11 laps in the lead they are now. Second is Pinckney Gravitt, third Field Hathaway, fourth Brown and Burley. Those 4 Cosworth Sierras at the head of the field. Fifth, still that remarkable run from the Golf GTI of Bourne and Kirby, leading Class C. And sixth now, back up the field after its early hours dramas, the McHale Sands Dowsett car, which is the Class B leader, and leading Class D, still one of the little Suzuki Swifts, Busby Munger, and the only lady in the race, Heather Bailey.
And I'll tell you what is clogging on, and that's the other Sierra, the car that currently we've seen have its problems early on in the race with that fuel stop when the fuel was coming out. But that's the Rod Gravitt car, and he is moving and moving very quickly.
Yes, indeed he is. Rob Gravitt, a former winner of the race, one incidentally of 11 previous winners of this race who are competing this year. Rob, now, I think he's going to have a bit of a charge to try and get onto terms with the leader.
There's a problem for number 40, and that's the Fiat Strada Abarth, and that looks like that to me.
Well, I don't know, Neville. They're pushing it a very long way. Normally, marshals would just move a car to the closest safe point. I wonder if they're pushing it a long way to try and give the driver a little bit of quiet assistance.
Well, looking at that, it seemed to me that he was on a very narrow part of the runoff area, and they would want him a little bit further up the road than that. So it's probably 6 of one and a half dozen of the other situation. Marshals can be very helpful when they want to be, and totally the opposite when they don't.
Well, they have a job to do, voluntary as it is. And, of course, it's a really tough assignment for the marshals, a 24-hour race like this.
Yeah, they come in their caravans, and they do actually get a little bit of a chance sometimes to have a bit of a sleep and swap over between them, but it's pretty tough out there. And, of course, the weather, we've always been very exceptionally lucky with the weather here at Wilshire. It's often played its part because it has been very hot, and it's the same this year.
Well, indeed, but of course, Neville, that creates the additional problem perhaps of being too hot, and we've already seen some of the dramas in the Cosworth Sierra teams, and that's largely under bonnet pressure. Here the marshal's working away as pulling off at the S's there just by the grandstand. As I speak, he pulls not off, but he rejoins the circuit. This is the motor build Cosworth Sierra, the Graham Davies car. What drama has he got? The car's going very slowly, looks probably like an engine misfire.
Yeah, it sounds to me as if he's got some sort of fuel starvation. Well, if you don't want to go to the paddock restaurant, you can always cook your own breakfast, and some of the marshals are getting up, returning to their posts to take over from those who've had the night off, as we've got a few crowds about.
Yes, we have indeed, Neville. Now, that may well prove to be to the advantage of the Cosworth teams, because if it is just a little bit cooler during the rest of the race, we've got around about 8 hours or so yet to go. It may well be that that proves to be advantageous for them.
Interesting to look at the performance of one or two cars here. It was at the Wilshire a few years ago that the 16-valve Cosworth Mercedes made its debut. Now, there's one car out there that is going, in fact, quicker than it's ever gone in the Wilshire, and it happens to be that Cosworth car. Now, I think it's the 4th year that that car has competed. It's going better than ever before. We've got a moment there, and that was quite a moment as number 50 nearly got himself collected. The Des Winks, Martin Ray, Trevor Elliott Honda Prelude, and that was a prelude to a big accident that didn't happen.
And there the car is winking at us as it goes past to say, don't worry, I got that well in hand. Would have been very embarrassing, of course, because Trevor Elliott is the managing director of Honda UK.
There's the Mercedes that we were talking about, but down in the pits is Cindy, who survived the night as well, and she's talking to Graham Scarborough.
Is the competition causing any problems at the moment? Now it's light again.
No, not at the moment. I think we're still the quickest car out there, but we just had a front brake caliper seize up, so we lost a few laps changing that. So anyway, I've got to go now because I'm in a second.
Okay, have fun.
Fun indeed for the leading car in the 1988 Wilshire 24-hour race, which comes in the pits for a scheduled stop, and let's just see how this pit stop goes. Driver change. Fortunately, they're both about the same size. If anything, Nana's a bit slighter figure, so they haven't got to mess around with seat cushions. They're looking at the brakes very anxiously. We said that this is a hard circuit on brakes.
Yes, indeed, Neville, and it's something which we see there, the Abbott Racing team looking at the front brakes. Now, whether they're actually going to be changing them, the pads, we're not certain, but it's something they have to be very careful about, and it's much safer to change, even just as a precaution, just in case something happens out on the circuit.
Well, Scarborough strapped in, down it comes off the jacks, the engine is running, and that leading car goes back into the race once more, and this has been a fine run on their part. We were talking about that Mercedes earlier on. Who we got at the wheel at that now, Robin?
Well, we've had a cracking team there. Ricky Fagan, the man who regularly competes with that car, has co-opted Ian Flux and Ian Taylor, two very experienced drivers indeed. And Taylor's out in the car at present, a former British Formula 3 champion, of course, and a man who's added some good pace to that car, although it hasn't had an untroubled run.
It certainly hasn't, and here's another car that survived the night, coming out down the pit road now.
Yes, we're in car this time, another of the Cosworth Sierras. This is the car that was on pole position, the Pinckney and Gravett car, lying in the early part of Sunday morning in second place. And with one or two minor problems that they have had with the Abbott Racing car, one or two slightly longer pit stops than they'd anticipated, the gap from first to second has come down to just a handful of laps. And it may well be that we're going to be able to see a real charge from this second place car to get on terms with the leader. You can see him running very wide on the exit of Sear there. He's really having a go.
Yes, I think we're going to see quite a chase in this 24-hour race now, because second place man, and this is the second place car, does feel that he has a chance of closing the gap.
Absolutely right. The man at the wheel's Rob Gravett, who knows just about as much about driving a Cosworth Sierra quickly as anyone in the country. You can see the pressure he's putting himself under there as he gives chase to try and narrow that gap.
All with one hand as well.
Well, you've got to change gear with one, Neville.
Yeah, all very relaxed and all basically very smooth, although there's a bit of wheel twirling going on there. But now you know the man's in a hurry, he's running over the curbs.
That's right. Of course, something which we've mentioned earlier on, Neville, is that running over the curbs is not necessarily to the greatest advantage of the driver, or for that matter the car. But, oh, you see them bouncing on the exit of Russell there. Gravett really having a go, but of course there are two other drivers with this car, Pinkney and Bristow, and down to Cindy in the pits with Lawrence Bristow.
Wants to win, and I think me and Dave Pinkney would be happy with a second. So, you know, we've got a little bit of politics going on here.
What about the temperature? Is that going to have any effect with the sun being out?
The major problem we have is with tyres. The near side front tyre keeps destroying itself. And as a result, we're making more pit stops than we would normally do to change the tyre. The complete tread is coming off. So...
How long are the tyres lasting?
How
long are the tyres lasting?
Well, they're destroying themselves in about 2.5 hours, which is not good, because we could stay out there for 3 hours and 15 minutes, which would be a worthwhile gain.
Well, we've seen how the Ford is going in second place, but now a chance to look and see how BMW is going. Running on finer unleaded fuel, the Robin Brundle car shared with Jarrett von Cowan and also with David Sears has been going well, and Cindy's down in the pits to talk to Robin Brundle about their race.
How are you enjoying it and what's happening?
Yes, enjoying it immensely. We've now got down to the last 6 hours, of course, which can be the proving point, especially if the sun keeps coming out like this. That's going to be a real telltale for brakes, turbos and tyres, of course. But yeah, the pit stops are still very significant, which can only mean that it's an exceptionally close race. I think the couple of lead cars are well clear by about 10-12 laps, but then our little battle backwards, we're all within sort of 3 or 4 laps, and of course you can easily make that up by having to have one extra pit stop, you see, so very, very critical at the moment.
So it's still anybody's race?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, you can see by the car, you know, one of the leading cars is in the pits and has been now for the last 10 minutes, so effectively that's put him back 5 or 6 laps. So, you know, it brings the margin down all the time.
And how's your teammate faring at the moment?
Well, I don't have a chance to ask him yet because he's just gone out, of course. But, yeah, the third guy, he's doing very well. David did quite a bit of driving during the night. Garrett did some early evening and now back in with me again. So, hopefully Garrett will maintain that first in class and fourth overall. So,
we wish you luck with the rest of the race.
Thanks very much.
Fourth overall then for that car, and it's interesting in the European Touring Car Championship, which are long-distance races of about 500 kilometres, the BMWs do from time to time beat the Ford Sierras. They don't do it in the British Championship and they don't do it in Group N. Very odd, but that's the way it works out in motor racing.
That's right. Look there, Neville, that's the sort of problem that these competitors are experiencing. That's the sort of temperature. You can see virtually boiling water there from the very hot brake pads whipped off the Golf here. This is the camera car that we've seen once or twice already with Phil White at the wheel. This car coming in for what looks as though it's been a scheduled stop, and out it goes, yes. The mechanics wave their arms to say yes, ready to go, and off it goes down the pit lane once again to rejoin the circuit.
And that car is in 11th place in its class in this 1988 Wilshire 24-hour race. We've got about 6 hours to go, as we've just heard Robin Brundle say. So, what are the positions, Robin?
Well, still leading is the Lionel Abbott Graham Scarborough Sierra Cosworth, going like a train as we've been staying. Second is that Pinkney Gravett car, just 4 laps behind and chasing and gaining. Third, Field and Hathaway and their Cosworth Sierra. Fourth, leading Class B, the Brundle BMW. Fifth, leading Class C, the Nick Bourne Rob Kirby Golf GTI. And leading Class D, and now in 18th place overall, the Busby Munger Heather Bailey Suzuki Swift GTI.
And while all that was going on, we saw the Volkswagen very nearly lose the lot there. I think he was tucking himself in while another car came by, because he's out of the pits, as we've seen after that pit stop, just becoming accustomed to the condition of the car, and almost got himself in real trouble for a minute or two.
Yes, Neville, I think possibly they might also have something to do with the fact that he's got fresh tyres on. They haven't worked up to a competitive temperature yet, and so they need a little bit of warming up before he can really corner as he has been doing.
Yeah, by this time, of course, the state of the circuit has changed from the beginning of racing here. We've got a lot of rubber about, and even for modern cars, there is always a little drop of oil that seems to spill itself out of axles and gearboxes and God knows what else. So things are a little bit more slippery by this time of day than they are first thing in the morning.
That's right. We have had, of course, one or two retirements, and so we have got a certain amount of oil, as you say, water, that sort of thing, lying on the circuit, which does mean that people have got to be just that little bit more careful. And, of course, the other thing is, Neville, they must be getting fairly tired by now.
Yes, it's very, very difficult sometimes to keep your concentration. If you're down, shall we say, in 4th, 5th place in the class, you've got to pass cars, you've got to keep out of the way of faster cars, and you've also got to maintain the pace. And the concentrated effort gets more and more difficult as the race wears on.
Yes, I mean, we've been talking about the speed differentials between the faster and the slower cars. For the men in the middle, passing the slower cars, being passed by the faster cars, it's actually a more difficult problem than it is for many others.
Yes, if you've ever driven for a long time on a motorway or something like that for 200-300 miles, you get this sort of extra confident feeling, and that's, of course, the time when you're dangerous, and a lot of these drivers sort of know that. They, therefore, take a while to keep their concentration in and get it into gear again. Once you've settled down, all right.
That's the Class D leader in the pits now, with Heather Bailey, the only remaining lady in the race, getting in to take over. Heather, of course, a competitor in Formula First, having her first ever race in a saloon car and going very well, leading the class.
Yes, Heather Bailey, one of the people who we should keep an eye out to, I think, in the future, because there aren't that many really good female racing drivers around. There have been some over the years, and Heather is definitely going in the right direction.
Yes, she impressed the gentleman who normally races this car, Tim Busby, by being about a second quicker than him in the first practice.
I don't know whether that had impressed me too much if it was my car, wouldn't you?
Well, I'm not sure. I think she smiled at him very sweetly, and Tim didn't.
Well, I think she smiled at me. I probably wouldn't mind either, but still, there's the BMW. Is that the leading car? Is it another of the BMWs?
No, that was the class leader. And in the pits here, we've got the car that's running in second place, just 4 laps behind the Abbott Scarborough Cosworth Sierra.
And that's Rob Gravitt, and he doesn't look too well to me.
You're absolutely
Rob
right.
Gravitt, who's just coming out of that car, looks to me as if he's got a problem. Now, this is heat exhaustion. It's the most dangerous thing that can happen to a driver. You're out there, you've got your suit on underneath, your fireproof suit, your overalls on, everything else. You lose so much liquid, and that's what happened to Rob Gravitt. And he came in and he's collapsed, and in fact he's taken off really to get some liquid into his system.
Yes, you're right, Neville. We're back in the car, though, with that second-place car. Now with the car's regular driver, Dave Pinkney, a former short-circuit racer, an oval racer, at the wheel and still giving chase to the leader, attempting to get back on terms to narrow that gap. Bounces over the curbs there on the exit of the S's and through Coram. He comes now up towards the pit lane once again to pass the start and finish straight. Just 4 laps he needs to make up on the leader, and as we've said time and again, just the odd 4 laps difference between those two. If the leader has a pit stop that lasts a little bit longer than is normally scheduled, then this car could easily take over the lead of the 1988 Wilshire 24 Hours.
Yes, a change of brakes or something like that could do it, but don't forget that this car's been pushed and pushed hard, and he's still got quite a long way ahead of it. And as always with things like this, we're waiting to see, in fact, whether either the leader or he or anyone else wilts under this relentless pressure.
That's right. The car we're following, incidentally, is the third-placed car, which Dave Pinkney bouncing all over the curb. He's doing a lot of damage to that car, I'd say.
Yes, it's not a clever thing to do, and here is the BMW, and that looks to me as if it's taken a fairly heavy whack in the one side. Ah, BMW wheels. Now, I know a bit about these. If you're not careful, you'll get the wheel nuts locked on them.
Well, that looks like a very quick stop. There's the team manager in the blue tabard there, number 22, standing by the driver's door. That's Rod Vickery. He's been managing this team with considerable verve and energy this weekend. Always enjoys himself at the Wilshire 24 Hours. One of the regular supporters of this very popular race, popular with competitors and spectators alike.
Into the pits, car number 7. Sean Brown, Rod Burley, Mike O'Brien.
Mike O'Brien there in swimming trunks, having a quick chat with the driver. Mike, a regular competitor in the British Touring Car Championship, a very experienced man in gaining sponsorship apart from anything else, showing just how good the weather here is at Snetterton this year, almost sunbathing.
But no sunbathing necessary for car number 3 in the lead, which now knows that he has a pressureful situation continuing on behind him, even with the demise of Gravitt and the possibility that he will not drive again during the course of the day. That gap is beginning to close, and they cannot but be a bit worried about it.
That's right. We've heard, incidentally, from the medical centre, Neville, that Rob Gravitt is OK. He just needs to sit down and rest himself a little, but there's no permanent damage to the lad. So that's very good news from the medical centre. There's the car that he got out of so very recently, car number 10, lying in second place, with David Pinkney at the wheel and giving very vigorous chase indeed to the race leader, Lionel Abbott.
Yes, I think there was a little bit of dissension as to whether they should do that or settle for a good second, but now I think they've all got the bit between their teeth.
I think as we are coming towards the closing stages, we've got about 5 hours or so still to go, but obviously it's definitely worth having a good, strong chase.
The Hathaway Bullman car, well, just a couple of drivers out of that, still going hard and going strong. Yes, Tommy Field, in fact, one of the other pair. I'm just racking my brains. Oh, yes, it's Dave Wallace, isn't it, who's driving the other one, a number 26 BMW there. And again, the reliability record has proved to be perhaps a little bit more suspect this year in the Wilshire.
Yes, Neville, I think that the very high temperatures, the ambient temperature, I'm not so much thinking of engine temperatures, hasn't helped at all this year, as into the pits comes the leading car once again, the Mobile 1 car of Abbott and Scarborough. Now, Ed Abbott, the team manager there, with the cap and earmuffs we see at the front of the car, he's not looking troubled at all, so I would take this as being one of the regular unplanned pit stops, and a very quick one too.
Well, certainly we've had one or two Sierra Cosworths in trouble. Leading car hasn't had very many troubles, thank goodness. And this is the second place car.
Yes, we're in car once again, Neville, with Dave Pinkney at the wheel. Just 4 laps, and remember that we've just seen the leading car in the pits. That means that it's cost itself a little bit of time, perhaps as much as, let's say, half a lap or so.
Or more than that, I think.
And that means that Pinkney is that bit closer. And but look, Neville, he doesn't seem to be going at the pace that he was going before.
No, it's not as quick. I'm just listening to the engine note there, and we can see the dials, but we can't see what they're reading, and I'm wondering whether or not the stress of pushing so hard has created them a problem.
Yes, I mean, the dials may well be telling Pinkney that the engine temperature is up a bit, so perhaps he's just backing off for a lap or two to see whether it's going to cool itself, to give him an opportunity to chase once again. But as he goes through the S's, under the Dunlop Bridge there, past that grandstand. The grandstand, incidentally, Neville, don't know if you noticed during the night, still people sitting in that grandstand right through the night to watch the Wilshire 24 hours, but Pinkney not passing, for instance, that Golf GTI that's directly ahead of him.
I think he's on his way into the pits. I think he'll be in the pits at the end of this lap. He's not positioned himself to do so.
No.
Or has he? Yes, he has. I think he's carrying on. He's carrying on, so perhaps he's hoping it's going to settle down.
Well, I think you're right. No, his hands go up. What does this mean? Does this mean disaster for the second place car? It's slowing down. The engine note has changed dramatically. And Dave Pinkney, what tragedy for that team. Pulling off onto the side of the circuit. He's going to park on the grass. The number 2 second place car, the race is over.
Yes, and I will never understand why, since he was going more slowly, since he had got a problem, he didn't take it to the pits before it went bang and got a bit more expensive. So here comes the leader once again.
Neville, just let me butt in because I see Lionel waving his hand there as he goes past. What they've just done is achieved a new record for the Wilshire 24 hours. They've passed the 1,000 lap mark, and it's some time before the end of the race yet. The previous longest distance was 985 laps. They've passed it, and that wins them an extra £1,000 from race sponsor Roger Williams.
Yes, that's been something they've been waiting to have happen a long time, and I think the reason why this has happened this year is that although we've had people who have had a few problems, we haven't had the long periods of the pace car out, as has been the case in some previous years, and therefore the pace of this race has been quicker. Yet, in spite of all that, you'll still find that people can actually find time to wash the car before the end of the race.
Yes, that's one of our camera cars there, Phil White's Golf GTI, just going back out of the pits once again with the screen and quite a lot of the car completely now clean. More power to their elbow, good bit of presentation for the sponsor, of course.
Yes, by now, in fact, most of these teams are feeling, if you like, a little bit like the morning after the night before. It's a sort of relief, a little bit of sort of let's get on, let's get it over with and all this sort of thing, because the tiredness factor does creep in. And just think of those drivers out there. They've been pounding around now for very nearly 24 hours. And at the end of that time, they can say, yes, OK, I'm going to have a kip now. If they can, of course, close their eyes and their ears to the noise and the vibration and everything else that stays with you for so long afterwards.
Oh, I'm sure it does, Neville. I mean, it's not something that I personally would fancy doing. Although nowadays, of course, the insides of some of these production cars are not as noisy as they were in the past. I mean, I mentioned a little while ago that I was fortunate enough to have a few laps around Snetterton with Tony Lanfranchi, and I was very surprised by the degree of comfort in a production saloon Cosworth Sierra. But now, Neville, of course, we're coming towards the end of the race. Down in the pit lane is Roger Williams, the man who owns Wilshire, the race sponsors. As has been the custom since this race started 9 years ago, it will be him who waves the checkered flag at our race winner, and short of any disaster in the remaining lap or so, that race winner is going to be the Ford Sierra RS Cosworth of Lionel Abbott and Graham Scarborough.
Well, he's got one leg over the wall, and the flag is about to go out at any minute. He will wait for that leading car. Out goes the flag, and the Wilshire 24-hour race, the 9th event in this series, has been won.
Indeed, and won in commanding fashion by Lionel Abbott and Graham Scarborough. Short of one minor problem early on, they lost the lead for about 40 minutes to Tommy Field, but apart from that, that Ford Sierra RS Cosworth has led for the entire 24 hours.
Well, let's have a quick look as the cars come in at those people that didn't survive. Mark Hales and Jerry Marnie, you remember we were watching their progress earlier on in the race. Well, they were among the non-survivors. They had problems, they were out of the race. The Suzuki Swift of Dickinson, Ward and Reed, that's out. And Frankie is out. We didn't see anything of him in the race. Roger Williams himself, of course, went out quite early on.
Yes, that's right. And among the class contenders, the John Morris Williams Volkswagen Golf GTI was a departure. And of course, very early on in the race, we lost the Chilton and Phillips Lancia Delta HF and have seen nothing of that at all. An interesting entry, though.
Yes, the Johnson Cowl Shader Ford Escort, the man with all the different hair. James Shedd, Irving and Harvey, their Escort RS went out as well. The little Lancia Delta, that never really showed at all. And then, of course, the most significant retirement of all, the Rob Graddock car.
Very disappointing that for Dave Pinkney, the driver at the time. Neville, I have a point to make to you here. I was the one who said I thought the Strada Arbath was going to keep going, and keep going it has, and it's just going to get across the line.
It was only just, though. That did look irretrievable at one position in the race, so we go down to the presentation.
And Neville, we see here the Class D winners, Heather Bailey there, Tim Busby, who shared that car with her, and also Simon Munger in the Suzuki Swift GTI, the winners of Class D, and a delighted Heather in her first ever saloon car race.
And coming up now for their presentation, the other class winners.
Class C, the winners here, the Nick Bourne, Rob Kirby, Volkswagen Golf GTI, and a superb achievement that they finished in 3rd place overall and completed 10 laps more than last year's outright winner.
Fantastic performance by the Volkswagen. And there is Robin Brundle, the younger of the Brundle brothers, hasn't yet managed to follow his brother's footsteps into Formula One, but nevertheless a good drive here.
Superb achievement for Robin, sharing with Gerrit Van Cowen, and David Sears, unfortunately not here to take the champagne because he's already away at Mallory Park for another race meeting.
Well, that certainly has been a good race for them. But an even better race for these two people here. Skid Scarborough on the left there with his back to the camera. Lionel Abbott facing you. These two men have driven, just the two of them, in that winning car, number 3, to win the 1988, the 9th Wilshire 24-hour race. And, of course, they've taken the 1,000 laps as well. A fantastic performance here at Snetterton, and one that we've been waiting to see for a very long time. There's the champagne. Any sensible man now keeps out of the way or gets soaked. And there, of course, is the beautiful Rose Bowl. And the champagne being served out to all and sundry. It's a big team effort, this, to get this act together. I'm quite sure that Lionel's delighted that his brother's gone just as well.
Yes, Ed Abbott, the mastermind behind the team. But to hear about their race, let's go over with Cindy to Lionel Abbott himself.
Good win. Did you have to work hard?
Well, yes, it's certainly nice to win, but and I think for 24 hours you have to work, fairly hard. We were fortunate that we were leading for 22 hours, but there was a great deal of work went on behind the scenes to be in that position.
What do you put your win down to? Team management or whatever?
Well, I think about 20 personnel all working in harmony together. 2 drivers who work very well together. Ed, the team manager, and our 8 mechanics work superbly together.
So team management's what it's all about?
Absolutely. It's no good having the 2 fastest drivers with no
bit back up. Not that we were the two fastest drivers, but no, just a good, sensible team. And I think that's what we had. The car was reliable. We knew the problems that could possibly go wrong from the year before. Two problems did arise, but we managed to sort them out straight away.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So that's the Wilshire for 1988. And on behalf of me, Neville Hay, and Robin Bradford, we hope you enjoyed it, and let's look forward to the next 24-hour race at Snetterton in 1989.